02. Alright, dim the lights a little. Here's a long, slow burn horror story about a nun mystery, creepy, atmospheric, and unsettling. Not gory. The nun behind the locked chapel. Everyone in St. Agnes Convent followed one rule without question. Never open the old chapel after sunset. The convent stood on a hill outside a forgotten town, wrapped in fog so thick it felt alive. The locals crossed themselves whenever they passed it. Some said the place was holy. Others whispered it was cursed long before the nuns arrived. I came there as a caretaker, assigned to help with repairs. I wasn't religious, but the job paid well. And I didn't believe in ghost stories. That changed on my first night. The bell that rang by itself. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the convent bell rang. Not the main bell, the chapel bell, the one connected to the abandoned wing. Sister Margaret, the head nun, stood frozen in the corridor. That bell hasn't been rung in 30 years, she whispered. Before I could ask anything, a soft humming drifted through the hallway. A woman's voice. Calm. Melodic. A hymn. But there were only 6 nuns in the convent and all of them stood behind me. Sister Maria's name. The next day, I noticed something strange. Every nun avoided one specific portrait in the dining hall. It showed a young nun with pale skin and hollow eyes. Her nameplate read, Sister Maria 1989. When I asked about her, Sister Margaret's face turned pale. She was devoted, she said slowly. Too devoted. That night, I found an old journal hidden behind loose stones in the library wall. It belonged to Sister Maria. The final entry chilled me. God no longer answers. But something else does. It wears his silence like a veil. The locked chapel. On the 3rd night, the humming returned closer this time. It came from beneath the convent. From the locked chapel. The door was sealed with iron chains and symbols scratched deep into the wood. But the lock was open. Inside, the chapel smelled of old candles and damp stone. At the altar stood a nun, her back to me. Her habit was old-fashioned. Torn. Stained. Sister. I whispered. She turned. Her face was familiar. It was the woman from the portrait. Her eyes were completely black, and her mouth moved, but the voice that came out was many voices speaking together. You should not have read my prayers. The truth they buried. The walls of the chapel were covered in scratches, prayers carved over each other, frantic and desperate. Sister Maria hadn't been possessed. She had invited something in, believing it was God answering her devotion. When the other nuns realized the truth, they locked her inside the chapel during a ritual. They sealed the doors. They rang the bell once to mark her burial. But they never destroyed the chapel. They only waited. The bell rings again. Sister Maria stepped closer. The candles ignited on their own. I kept praying, she said gently. And something listened. The chapel door slammed shut behind me. Above us, the bell began to ring. Not once. Not twice. But without stopping. Morning. I woke up outside the convent gates at sunrise. The building was silent. When I turned back, the old chapel windows were open for the first time in decades. And from inside, drifting softly into the morning air, came a hymn. Sung by a voice that was no longer alone.